Hey everybody, this is Mark Twain. I'm here to bring you the notes from Mr. Logan's class, American Literature. Hope y'all doing really fine today. That Mr. Logan's a character. He can only be described with one thing, as I called the king in Huckleberry Finn. Mr. Logan's got perfect balditude, absolutely. All right, here we go. Off we go. You should have downloaded the notes from the resource tab on RenWeb, and you can fill in the blanks as we go through the notes. Here we go. Mark Twain as a craftsman. Well, much obliged. I appreciate that. And Mark Twain turned oral humor into written satire. Today there's a prize, the Mark Twain Prize. Hey, named after me. And it's awarded to America's best comedians. That's Will Ferrell down there. You may have heard of Will Ferrell. Now, Mr. Logan, he thinks he's funny. He thinks he's going to win the Mark Twain Prize for humor one day. Fat chance. Next up, Mark Twain as craftsman. Well, I tended to capture colloquial speech, and I used local dialects or vernacular. One example that I think you've done already is a translation of Jim's reading of Huck's Future from the Hairball, from the fourth stomach of an ox. That's a good example of the slave dialect from the Mississippi River Valley of the 1840s. One thing I'm awfully proud of is my writing of romantic literature. I'm really a romantic at heart. And here's an example of the raft floating down the river in chapter 8. Look for these passages throughout the book, because I sprinkled these passages every other chapter or so. It was beautiful going down that raft with Jim, and the stars all out and the drift logs, and all feeling pretty satisfied. Now next I want to get to the mythic images of the Mississippi River. It was just by sheer luck that I was born in Hannibal, Missouri, and raised on the Mississippi River, and spent most of my young adulthood on the Mississippi River. So a lot of the things I use in my book are first-hand knowledge. Well, the Mississippi River, of course, cuts from Minnesota all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. So it serves as the heartland of America. So that means that, like the river, my book might have some effect on you in one way or another. A second mythic image is that feeling of going with the flow, steamboats to rafts. Everybody likes to get on a boat or a raft, just float along, let the wind push you or the current. And that's kind of what we felt like, Jim and I, going down the river. A third mythic image is the youthful innocence. This is Huck's desire to light out for the territories. Now, we haven't gotten that far in the book, but at the end, he's going to want to light out for the territories. He wants to go on a new adventure, just like we all do. Have that youthful innocence to discover the world. And the fourth mythic image has to do with so-called progress. Would you like to be on a raft in a very natural setting without mankind obscuring the view? Or would you rather have a modern day setting, as you see down there in the bottom right, with the bridges and the factories and the highways? I don't know about you, but I kind of like going down on the raft. Now, the third part of this lecture is the Huck Finn publishing history. We move forward to the 1990s here. We're going to talk about what happened to half of the manuscript. It got lost when my good friend James Fraser Gluck died, and his family misplaced my manuscript. Anyway, it all began with the publication of Tom Sawyer, and that was such a success in 1876 that, of course, the publishers wanted a sequel. So off I went. I went back to my hometown of Hannibal, went down the Mississippi River, but the things I saw there led me to writing about my childhood again, brought back a lot of powerful memories. So I wrote Life on the Mississippi, after visiting the Mississippi River instead of writing Huck Finn. Huck Finn gave me an awful bit of trouble when I tried to write it. Now here's a picture of a man who's still alive today. I believe he's 92 and he's still going up on stage impersonating me. Why somebody'd want to impersonate me their whole career, I don't know. But how I got to give credit to this Hal Holbrook guy. He's a famous actor and he even had an Academy Award nomination a little while back for Into the Wild. Now Mark Twain, impersonator Hal Holbrook, he remarked that when I went down to Mississippi, I saw the failure of emancipating the slaves. And the slaves were freed, and the Ku Klux Klan and Jim Crow came out. And that's when Huck Finn turned from a boy's book to an adult book. Now, the publishing history ran as such that when the book finally was published, the Concord Public Library, it called the book trash and suitable for the slums. And I said, great, that'll sell me 25,000 more copies. And in fact, it did. Now, initially, the controversy was over Huck Finn about its bad grammar. We talked about that with ain't and all these jibber-jabbered words in there, all mixed up, labbered and stabbered and all kinds of strange words, joggled. And so people, teachers, librarians, parents, they didn't want their kids reading what they thought was trash. Today, of course, it's rejected for the racist overtones of the book and the use of the N-word. Well, the manuscript itself, half of it, was found in an attic, believe it or not, in Los Angeles in 1990. And it fetched up to $1.5 million at auction. Man, I wish I had found that book. But the story goes that I gave half of it to my friend James Fraser Gluck. He was a longtime friend of mine in Elmira, New York, and in Buffalo. And he wanted to read over the manuscript before he gave it to the public library there in Buffalo and Erie County. Except he passed away. And it turned out there was a lawsuit over who owned the found manuscript, the one found in Los Angeles, the one that had made its way from Buffalo all the way to Los Angeles. Now there's 3 parties that claimed rights to the manuscript. The Buffalo Erie County Library that thought it was an overdue library book and ought to be returned. You had the Gluck sisters, the granddaughters of my best friend, and they thought they should own it because they had it. And then lastly, there were some unpublished chapters in that manuscript, and so the Mark Twain Foundation had a legal right to use those new chapters, to have legal rights to them. So ultimately, what happened? Well, Random House, they stepped in and they published a new edition, complete with the unpublished chapters. So now you can read all these new chapters in this new edition. And they split the proceeds 3 ways, between the Gluck sisters, between the foundation, and the Erie County Public Library. So now every time this book is purchased, then the proceeds are split 3 ways. So everybody's happy. The manuscript is safely matched with the other half, and the whole manuscript, which is really one of the first of its kind, because most authors threw away their manuscripts. This library saved my manuscript, and you can go see the original Huck Finn rough copy in Buffalo. Well, that's all the notes for today. I do want to give you one extra credit assignment if you've lasted this long, and that is to print out a map of Hannibal, Missouri, complete with the streets and all the landmarks, and see all the places that I used to play around with and hung out in Hannibal, Missouri. So print out 1 page, a map of Hannibal for extra credit. Take care.